Now that Harry has his face expression, now we can put the hair on. So I am going to pop what we've made so far onto his head. And we have to leave room because if you can see this picture here, we are going to do his fringe separately. So these are going to be extra pieces that we sew on in a little bit. So we don't want to put this on. We don't want to put it on too far down because his fringe will have nowhere to sit. So I'm going to leave a good distance between the eyebrows and the hairline. And I'm going to pin the hairline into place first. So I'm going to find the centre of the hairline. I'm going to pin that down. Maybe even a little bit higher. I'm going to pin it down here. Okay, and then pop the tail onto my embroidery needle again and let's sew into place. And I'm going to do small whip stitches here. So I'm going to take a stitch from the head and a stitch from the hair closest to one another to secure. And as you go past these pins, take them out. And when you finish sewing it on, don't forget to weave in this tail. Now let's do his fringe. So now onto the fringe. It tells us the fringe is crocheted in rows, sew from left to right. So part 1, use brown yarn, do not work into the chain 1. So normally you would never work into the chain 1 anyway. A chain 1 is what is known as a turn and chain, and you never crochet into your turn and chains. So row 1 tells us to chain 10. So I'm going to slip knot onto my hook and I'm going to chain 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. Now row 2 tells us chain 1, decrease, double crochet 6, decrease and turn. So I will chain 1, single crochet 2 stitches together, single crochet 6, single crochet 2 stitches together and turn. And they're doing the same thing again, they're putting the chain 1s at the beginning of the next row instead at the end of the previous. So I'll be doing my chain 1s at the end. So I'm going to chain 1, and remember we don't work into that chain 1, so from the second chain from hook I'm going to begin by single crocheting 2 of these chains together. And then I'm going to single crochet 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Then it tells us to decrease again, so I'm going to single crochet the last 2 chains together. Chain 1 and turn. So for the next row, row 3, it tells us to decrease, double crochet 6 and turn. So I will single crochet 2 stitches together, single crochet 6, chain 1 and turn for a total of 7 stitches. So single crochet 2 stitches together, and then single crochet 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Chain 1 and turn. Row 4 tells us to decrease, double crochet 3, decrease, turn for 5 stitches. So I will single crochet 2 stitches together, single crochet 3, single crochet 2 stitches together, chain 1 and turn for a total of 5 stitches. So single crochet 2 stitches together, single crochet 3, 1, 2 and 3, then single crochet the last 2 stitches together, chain 1 and turn. Then it tells us row 5, decrease, double crochet 1, decrease and turn. So I'm going to single crochet 2 stitches together, single crochet 1, single crochet 2 stitches together, chain 1 and turn for 3 stitches. So single crochet 2 together, single crochet 1, single crochet 2 together, chain 1 and turn. Row 6, double crochet 1, decrease. So I'm going to single crochet 1, decrease, and it doesn't say turn here, but I'm pretty sure it means to say turn. So I'm going to chain 1 and turn. So single crochet 1, single crochet 2 together. So we have, what do we have? We have 2 stitches, chain 1 and turn, and then row 7, decrease to be left with 1 stitch. So I'm going to single crochet 2 stitches together, which is going to leave me with 1 stitch. And then it tells us fasten off, leave a long tail for sewing, and then sew onto the head. But I'm going to wait until all my fringe pieces are made before I sew them onto the head, so I can check the position. So I'm going to leave a long tail, snip, pull through, and there is part 1 done. So I'm going to put that to the side. Now we can go on to part 2. So next we are up to part 2 of the fringe. So with the brown yarn again, it tells us the same instructions, do not work into the chain 1. So row 1, chain 8. So begin with a slip knot or a slip stitch, slip knot even, onto hook, and we're going to chain 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. Now for row 2 it tells us to chain another 1, then decrease, double crochet 6 and turn. So I will be doing for row 2, chain 1, single crochet 2 stitches together, single crochet 6, and then I'll chain 1 and turn for a total of 7 stitches. So I'll do the extra chain 1 that they've asked for, and remember we're not going to single crochet into that chain 1. So from the second chain from hook, we're going to single crochet the first 2 chains together, and then I'm going to single crochet 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Chain 1 and turn. Row 3 tells us to decrease twice, then slip stitch, leave the rest without working. So we're going to single crochet 2 stitches together once, and then we're going to do that again for twice. Then I'm going to slip stitch into the next stitch and fasten off, leaving a long tail for sewing. So I'm going to cut the yarn tail, pull through, and there is part 2. Next we're up to part 3. So use brown yarn, do not work into the chain 1, which we already know. So for row 1 we're going to chain 10. So slip knot onto hook and chain 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. Then for row 2 it tells us to chain 1, so we'll do an extra chain 1 and then double crochet 10 and turn. So for row 2 I will chain 1, single crochet 10 and then I'll chain 1 again and turn for a total of 10 stitches. So I'm going to do an extra chain 1 and then from the second chain from hook, so we're going to ignore that chain 1 space, I'm going to single crochet 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. Chain 1 and turn our work. So we're up to row 3. It tells us to double crochet 8, then decrease and turn. So I'm going to single crochet 8, then single crochet 2 stitches together, chain 1 and turn for a total of 9 stitches. So single crochet 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8, then single crochet the last 2 stitches together, chain 1 and turn. Now for row 4 it tells us to decrease, double crochet 5, decrease and turn. So I will single crochet 2 stitches together, single crochet 5, single crochet 2 stitches together again, chain 1 and turn for a total of 7 stitches. So I'm going to begin by single crocheting 2 stitches together. Now single crochet 5, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and then single crochet the last 2 stitches together, chain 1 and turn. Row 5, decrease, double crochet 3, decrease, turn. So I will single crochet 2 stitches together, single crochet 3, single crochet 2 stitches together, chain 1 and turn for a total of 5 stitches. So single crochet 2 together, single crochet 3, 1, 2 and 3, and single crochet the last 2 stitches together, chain 1 and turn. And now it tells us row 6, decrease, double crochet 1, decrease and turn. So I will single crochet 2 stitches together, single crochet 1, single crochet 2 stitches together, chain 1 and turn for a total of 3 stitches. So single crochet 2 stitches together, single crochet 1, single crochet the last 2 stitches together, chain 1 and turn. And now the last row, row 7, decrease, slip stitch for 2 stitches. So I'm going to single crochet 2 stitches together, then I'm going to slip stitch, and then I'm going to fasten off, leaving a long tail for sewing onto the head. So for this last row, single crochet 2 stitches together, slip stitch into the next stitch, and then cut, leaving a long tail. So the last part of the hair, or the last part of the fringe, is part 4, use brown yarn, do not work into the chain 1, and row 1 says chain 10. So slip knot onto our hook and chain 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. Row 2, chain another one, decrease, double crochet 6, decrease and turn. So for row 2 I will chain 1, single crochet 2 stitches together, single crochet 6, single crochet 2 stitches together, chain 1 and turn for a total of 8 stitches. So chain an extra one, and then from the second chain from hook we're going to single crochet 2 together, single crochet 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, and then single crochet the last 2 stitches together, chain 1 and turn, row 3, decrease twice, slip stitch, leave the rest without working, fasten off and leave a long tail. So I will single crochet 2 stitches together twice, followed by a slip stitch, and then leave the long tail. So single crochet 2 stitches together, ooh, 1 and 2, and then slip stitch and fasten off. Now, looking for instructions on how to sew the hair into place, there isn't an awful lot. It does tell us to sew from left to right, but in this picture that they provided, this tiny little picture, it doesn't really give us much detail. And if we were to sew from left to right, based on the instructions that they gave us, it would mean that we'd have a big piece, a medium piece, and then another big piece and a little piece. And just from this picture I can see that that's not the way the hair works out. These 2 larger pieces are going to be going on the sides of Harry, and these 2 little pieces, based on this picture, are going to be in the middle. So if I look at the main picture from the beginning, I can see that that's what we're meant to do. But what I've noticed is the ears are behind the hair. So before I sew the hair into place, I want to sew the ears. I want to do the ears first. So that's what I'm going to do next. So going back to the ear instructions. Make 2 with beige yarn, round 1, 3 double crochet into a magic ring. So I'm going to do 3 single crochet into a magic ring with the beige yarn. Unravel the beige. I'm going to chain 2, slip knot onto hook, chain 2, 1 and 2, and then I'm going to do 3 single crochets, 1, 2 and 3. So we did 3 single crochets into the second chain from hook, and then in round 2 it tells us to increase 3 times for a total of 6 stitches. So I'm going to do 2 single crochets into all of these stitches for a total of 6 stitches. So this isn't my favourite way of doing the ears, but I'll follow the instruction. So into the first stitch, they're just so close together because there's only 3. So into that first stitch, we're going to do 1 and 2. Into the second stitch, 3 and 4, and then into the last stitch, 5 and 6. And then it tells us to fasten off, leaving a long tail for sewing. So to fasten off, I'm going to slip stitch into the next stitch to join, chain 1 and cut the yarn. And that is 1 ear. So I'm going to make a second ear using the method that they said. Now, just to have a moan, in round 2 it tells us to increase times 3. And what I don't understand is why they're not using the method that they've used previous. When they've wanted us to repeat something, they've put it inside brackets. But for this time, and one time during the hair, they used a multiplication sign followed by the number. So this is just, I don't like it when patterns do this, which is they are changing the way they are telling us instruction instead of being consistent. So increase times 3, we all know what that means, but if they were being consistent, the increase should have just been in brackets and the number 3 afterwards. But that's me just being a bit picky. So I'm going to make the second ear, and then I can sew the ear and the hair, the ears and the hair all into place. So using this picture as my inspiration, that's how I'm going to work out where to sew things onto the head. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And the first thing I'm going to do is put the ears into place. So with the starter tail, I'm going to find my embroidery needle. I must lose this 4 times a day. Well, I found a different embroidery needle, but I found with an embroidery needle, I'm going to pop that tail onto the needle, and I'm going to pop the ears. I'm just looking, yeah, I'm going to pop the ears around the same place as the eyes. So I'm going to take that tail all the way through the head, and then with the end tail, I'm going to pop that onto the embroidery needle, and I'm going to use this part to secure that ear into place. So I'm going to do that by doing a couple stitches at the base of the ear. We want the ear to stick out slightly, so I don't want to sew the whole ear down. Just a couple of stitches on the bottom and the side. And I'm happy with just that. So I'm going to take the yarn tail out of the bottom and weave it in. And then I can cut this off and do the second ear. Now that I'm looking at this picture, I've noticed something that I've done wrong, and I'm sure you've probably already seen it, especially if you're a Harry Potter fan. I've put his head on the wrong way and I don't want to unravel it and take it off now, which I could do, but I just feel like we're too late into the game. The red part of the jersey should be on the opposite side, so I should have put his head on facing forward this way. But I'm going to continue, and hopefully it doesn't annoy you too much. So next I'm going to pin his hair into place. I'm going to pin it before I sew it so that it can be exactly where we want it to be. So that was part A. Then I'll do the other side. Which would have been part 4. And then we have these 2 little pieces to put on next. Now, I don't know whether you can tell, but I'm really struggling to get these pieces lined up because they seem to be too big for his head. They, if I put them into place as in the picture, it's going to cover most of his face. So I couldn't have put the headpiece on any further back because the neck's already extremely low. So I don't know what's happening, but I'm trying to make the best of it. So I've moved all the pieces back up into the hairline more so than is suggested in the photo. And now to do the same thing with these pieces. So now, after struggling to get these pinned in, this took me about 6 to 7 minutes just to get them pinned in where I'm going to sew them. So it wasn't an easy job, but now I'm going to use the yarn tails to sew the fringes into place. So putting the tails onto the embroidery needle, I'm just going to sew these all into place. So this is where I'm up to now. I have his hair all sewn on, and the next thing I'm going to do is the scar. Now if I bring my Harry picture back in, the scar looks really pink, and you can see it's a massive contrast from the skin colour of his face. So I've just picked up the yarn that they gave us to do the scar with, and to me it's just too similar to his skin colour. So if I sew his scar on with this, I don't think we'll be able to see it too well. So I've gone into my own stash and I found this pink colour, and I'm going to use a strand of this to sew on his scar because I think this is closer to the colour on the pattern than the colour that they sent me. So I've cut a length of this. I'm going to pop that onto my embroidery needle, and I'm just going to hand sew his scar on above his right eyebrow. So I'm going to go over the stitches twice to make the yarn a little bit thicker so it stands out. I'm just going to hand sew the lightning bolt into place. There we go. Then I'm going to thread the needle, weave the yarn in and out and cut it off.